This week on Women Who Rise, I'm joined by someone who has built his entire life around discipline, integrity, and the choice to rise. Coach Randy Byrd, from the U.S. Coast Guard to leading luxury real estate teams to building coaching programs that have transformed thousands of careers, Randy brings the raw truth about what it really takes to grow. We talk about the power of consistency, the cost of winning, and the mindset shifts that separate those who wish for success from those who design it. If you're ready to think bigger, execute stronger, and rise with intention, this is an episode you will feel. Tune in for a conversation that will stretch your vision and sharpen your leadership. Hey everyone, and welcome to Women Who Rise. I'm your host, Heather Mansy. Today, my guest is Randy Byrd, a nationally recognized real estate leader, performance coach, and speaker known for his straight line approach to growth, discipline, and integrity. After serving in the U.S. Coast Guard and building successful careers in construction, investing, and real estate leadership, Randy went on to found Byrd House Development and the Like a Boss coaching ecosystem, where he mentors agents and entrepreneurs to be more, do more, and impact more. He has coached high-level producers through both Tom Ferry and Success Coaching and leads the Oregon Luxury Group at eXp Realty while building a national downline organization. Through his events, such as Build, his Attract Boss program, and his Like a Boss podcast, Randy teaches the philosophy that personal transformation is the gateway to financial and professional freedom. His work centers on mindset mastery, accountability, and creating a business and life by design. Welcome to the show, Coach Randy. Thank you so much for joining us here today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Always a pleasure.
Thank you. So you built a life around discipline and intentional growth. Take us back to the beginning. What was the first job or the earliest career memory, and how did it shape the way that you operate yourself today?
Boy. Well, I was born in East LA, so I was running in the wrong crowds and all the good things that happen with being an inner city child. And, I was in Linwood, Watts, so some rough areas, born in Linwood. But really the military, to answer your question, the military really kind of smacked me around and made me the man I am today. You mentioned the Coast Guard. That was a big turning point in my life, because that's where I really learned for the first time discipline and, chain of command and integrity to your seniors and all the things that come along with that. And really, it's helped me accelerate through my career, that 4-year period of active duty in the Coast Guard, when I was somewhat a young man, really set the stage for my belief systems.
That's amazing. And I can see how, even my niece who had, spent 7 years in the Navy, it really transforms individuals. I'm, from a military family myself, and it's really interesting how that kind of rigidity and structure can really give a person an opportunity to build work ethic and other systems around just being able to, create that in their future life and benefit from it.
Yeah.
Did you always see yourself rising to this level of leadership, or was there maybe a defining moment, maybe during your time in the Coast Guard, construction, or earlier on in real estate, that made you realize that you were meant for more as a person?
I don't think so. I mean, I always had the feeling of I was a leader. So even in the military at a young age, I rose up and became the leader, and maybe they identified traits or something that I didn't see and didn't understand. But I've always been, how do we get to the finish line first? I've always been that guy, right? If somebody could do it, I'm going to figure out a way to do it better. You're not going to beat me on the treadmill, kind of like a Will Smith thing. It's like, I will die on the treadmill before you beat me. And I've always had that mentality, sometimes to a fault. But the reality is, there's just nothing that I don't feel I can accomplish if I put my mind to it. And I do a lot of things to fortify the mind. I'm a big believer in, I'm a Christian, but I believe in bigger things than me, right? I believe in the universe and the golden rule, and I believe all those things very, very deeply. But also, people just are way more powerful than they believe they are. And so if we can convince our mind through autosuggestion, through principles, through vision, what we can accomplish is really, immeasurable. And I believe that. And so one of the most frustrating things for me ever being a boss was people saying, well, I can't do that, or I don't know how to do that. And I just don't understand how people can give up on things that are hard just because they can't figure their way through it. And that's maybe the thing that set me apart, through my career.
Yeah, that's really interesting that you say that, even just going back to hackable things you can do to your mind because, auto suggestion. I mean, obviously that is in, common books that we hear about all the time, Napoleon Hill and things like that. I know a coach that I know really well is constantly literally trying to switch her thoughts around. If she says something negative, she's immediately going to say something positive. Mel Robbins is talking about that stuff right now and how every single day she's trying to create positivity. So there's so much you can do hacking the mind, but you also described yourself as someone maybe intensely competitive if you're going to die on the treadmill, but also someone who has built fortitude. And at some point in your life, you figured out that you can make it through, which I absolutely love. You coach people through massive barriers in business. What has been one of the biggest challenges in your own rise? What shifted you and helped you overcome that challenge, whatever it was?
Well, it's a vulnerable conversation, and I'm all about vulnerability, right? So that's I fit right in with the women who rise.
I love that. Thank you.
I'm definitely a sensitive, vulnerable guy, but
Uh,
breaking down the big man barrier type thing. But for me, it was tragic. It was it started with my brother taking his own life, my only younger brother. This has been about 10 years ago now, took his own life. And that's why I got into coaching, actually. I did it out of self-preservation. I knew that I had to control my mind. I knew I had to, for the first time in my life, I felt depression. For the first time in my life, I was suicidal. For the first time in my life, I felt what it felt like to be hopeless. And then fiance left at the exact same, chunk of time. I was, indicted on a bunch of things in real estate that were not true that I had to fight for my life on. So all these things happened literally at the same time. And I just realized that I needed to take control of my mind and take control of my spirit and attitude, or I was going to perish. I knew that as strong as I was my whole life, and I've always been a winner, I've wanted everything I've done. And so this really challenged me as a human being and, as a husband, as a father, and many of these things. And, I decided to go into coaching. God bless me for making that decision, because later, just a few years later, my ex-wife of 23 years took her own life. And then I had a best friend of mine take his own life. So within just a few years, I had arguably the top three people in my life take their own lives. And,
Gosh.
being a veteran that's not immune to the challenges that come with people coming back from the wars and suffering with PTSD and all the things, but that was never me.
Absolutely.
Right? I was not
Yeah.
that guy. I was like, I couldn't understand. I couldn't even believe that somebody could take their own life to get to that point, right? I could never understand how somebody could get so in despair that they would even think about that. I would be a surfer on a beach somewhere in Hawaii. I would be a dive instructor. There's 1,000 things that in my mind I could say I would do that before that, until you reach a point of hopelessness and depression. And I had that moment in my life, and it was very alarming for me. And I knew that I needed to get a coach. I hired Tom Berry actually first to coach me. And then after only 2 or 3 coaching calls with my coach that I was assigned, she goes, "You need to be a coach. Like you're a natural." And I'm like, "I'm not here to be a coach.
Mhm.
I'm here to, I need, I need to get my
Yeah.
crap together." And so she
Yeah.
said, "Just at least talk to Tom." And so I talked to Tom Ferry and was hired as a coach and went through the coaching boot camp about 10 years ago now. And through that process, now a couple years later, when my best friend had taken his life prior to this coaching experience, but when my brother committed suicide, that rattled me. My best friend, a guy that I really admired, that shook me, but it didn't shake me to my core. My brother shook me to my core. I just couldn't understand it, couldn't get out of it, didn't know what was next. And so coaching really saved me because when you're coaching other people, you have to listen to yourself talk, right? And you're speaking into them the things that you know, either in, a subliminal sense or in a training and exercise sense. But I found myself coaching people out of their challenges, coaching myself, right? Because when you coach
Yeah.
others, you're coaching yourself, let's be
Yes.
honest. And when you
So
teach,
true.
you're teaching other people. So the best way to learn a subject is teach it. And all you have to do is be one chapter ahead of the students or 1 week ahead of the students in some cases. And so for me, it was very important that I was in that coaching space and understanding how to connect with people, understanding how to break through challenges and barriers. And it was also a very high minded environment to be in, right? A lot of mental help, a lot of books. Like I read 0 books in my life until those events happened and I started coaching. Now I've consumed at least 100 books. And, I'm not a speed reader, but I love consuming books and I take a lot of notes. I highlight, I make journals. I do a lot of things and books inspire me. And now, and having a physical book in my hand is valuable for me. I do Audible as well, but having a physical
Yeah.
book, having the visual and the Audible and all those components of it really help me. But most of them are self-help, motivational, business building things. That's what turns me on. And so now I just devour books. It's like a regular thing. I could have 4 or 5 books that I'm reading at any given time, and it's a flavor of the day for me. But that is what helped me because I started reading Think and Grow Rich and understanding the power of the mind and understanding Napoleon Hill and all the components of what we put into our mind is really it's our world, right? It's our vision of that through our eyes or whatever that reflection of that image is. It's really what your mind comes up with first. And I found my mind was going down the wrong road and I'd have to stop it, turn the car around, and then purposefully go the other way, whether it was throughout a suggestion or just really visioning what I wanted the future to be. And there's been a lot of challenges in my career that I've made decisions that are like, this is a burn the boat decision, right? EXP was one of those
Yeah.
decisions. And,
Yeah.
if Tom hears this, it's fine. It's all good. But when I first learned of the company I'm with, EXP, I went to Tom as a coach and I said, "Hey, I'm super excited about this. I want to get your feedback on it and get some ideas on this." This is 9 years ago. And he goes, "Nope, you can't do it." And I'm like, "What do you mean I can't do it?" He goes, "You're a coach. You can't do it and work for me." And I'm like, "Okay, I'm an independent contractor. Explain that to me." Right. So we had some challenging conversations around that. And it led to a point to where, he goes, "Yeah, you got to make a choice. You got to one or the other." And so it was a couple of years before I did anything like 0 in EXP out of fear. And I found myself going, why am I living in fear? And first of all, if I'm attached to somebody where they have control over my entrepreneurial spirit, then I'm in the wrong place, right? So I immediately stepped down and burnt my boat, so to speak, and all my income and started this new venture. So it's been quite the journey.
It's amazing. I'm going to unpack a few things there just because there was so much wisdom in what you said. Number one, I'm extremely sorry to hear about the losses that you've suffered and really what you had to endure But I am so happy that you were able to, find ways to be resilient and to shift where your mind was going at the time and literally save yourself and rescue yourself from those scenarios. And I think that there's going to be a lot of our audience who, grief is significant. It's real. It's, we have people that I'll be doing a special episode on grief. And perhaps I would love to have you back for that, because really is something we will all grapple with. And as we get older, we'll grapple with it more. And it's just difficult. And I think the fact that, like you said, you had to learn to control the mind because it was going down those, dangerous roads that were leading you to have a miserable life experience and literally be in mortal danger. And just most people, when they learn how to sculpt how they think, they may not be in literal mortal danger of their, taking their own life. They may not have had the tragedies that you've had, but everyone suffers to some extent from this idea that their mind is going down roads that are not helping them, and that they're self-limiting, or they may have self-limiting beliefs, or even just daily thoughts. And so I really, really love that you took yourself on a journey, not only of reading a lot of books and filling your mind and being able to create it, but also that this concept of teaching by design was helping you as well, and it allowed you to contribute to others. And it's very true, like you said, I mentor people. I have a team, and I love mentoring them. And it gives me a moment. It gives me space and distance from my own mental programming, and it also gives me an opportunity to learn in the moment. And one of the things I'll just say about all that is that, people they know if you put bricks and mortar together, you can build a wall and you can change an environment, right? You can put on landscaping and plant trees and you can see it physically change. But what people don't realize is you can just as much create the mind that is in between your ears. You can literally create that landscape, and you will feel the difference. And this is what, one of the reasons this podcast exists is to be able to show people. In fact, the people who are at higher levels in our society and performing well and as entrepreneurs and doing all this have learned to some extent how to invent, create, or control, that gray matter, and be able to give themselves some freedom, as you did, and maybe give themselves inspiration and all of that. So one of the questions I wanted to ask you, about this, you talk a lot about, leadership. It seems to be one of your signature strengths. You actually mentioned, even, just in the military, how you kind of didn't even expect that leadership it wasn't something you were trying to be, and you didn't even understand why other people saw it in you all the time. You just know that they did. And I think accidental leadership is a fascinating thing. Who influenced your leadership style, maybe very early in life or along your life, and what lessons from those mentors have stayed with you the longest?
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I think my dad was, my mom died when I was a little boy. She died when I was 7. So this sounds like a tragic, tragic train wreck. But the bottom line is it's the life, right? It's my life, and it's the experiences I had. And I look back and reflect on the blessings of all these things that happened, right? But my dad was a strong person for me. I've always admired and really idolized my dad. My grandfather, Charlie Wright, passed away when I was in the Coast Guard. And he was just a shining light of possibility, of future, no limitations. He was just that guy. My dad was not. My dad was more of the safety and security type, like, are you sure you want to do that? And, I remember I've celebrated things with my dad where you'd think that he'd go, oh my gosh, that's amazing. He's like, I hope that doesn't blow up, I mean, I'm like, yeah, our stock just went to $1 billion. I hope that doesn't, crash. I'm like, okay. But anyway, that's really where I felt like I got it. But like in the Coast Guard, I thought maybe it was my age because I was like a year older than most. They were all 18, and I turned 20 in the Coast Guard, like in my first couple months. So I was like 19 and a half when I went in, I think. So maybe I was just a little more mature is maybe why they chose me, but they chose me as the master of arms of a platoon, basically, of 100 other kids, right? So I was the leader. And I didn't like it. I mean, I was like, I'm doing push-ups for what these clowns did wrong. They didn't make their bunk, so I do push-ups, and they didn't march right, so I do push-ups. And I came out looking like a gorilla because I was doing push-ups all day long every day for 10 weeks. But it was
For
a
other people's mistakes.
yeah, it was a forging of leadership, right? I felt like I was in charge of my people to both do the right thing for my benefit, but also do the right thing for the betterment of the whole group. And I think that's where it started for me, really. I mean, I remember that when I was prior to the military, I was working at companies where they promoted me very quickly. I went in the Coast Guard at 19 and a half years old. I turned 21 at sea. And I remember at 20 years old being asked to do what they call hot sections on the gas turbines and the big ship I was on. And at the time, I had no relevance of the importance of that. But to the other people, they're like, dude, we've been waiting 4, 5, 6, 7 years to be able to do that, do the hot sections and be the guy that works on the gas turbines. That's a big deal. And here I'm right out of boot camp and they're having me do it. And again, at the time, you're 20. I'm not saying I'm cool or they picked me because I'm a leader. I was just saying, yeah, I'll do it, whatever you need. And looking back on that, I'm seeing these traces that the way I was showing up, my mental attitude that there's nothing I can't do, tell me what needs to be done and then just let's get it done. And it's just been a superpower of mine most of my life. Doesn't matter what career I've been in. I've been a contractor for 30 years, a real estate broker for 23. I've ran large hotels. I mean, I was 25 years old, right out of the Coast Guard, running $50 million hotel properties, like 1,100 rooms in 4 different hotel properties. And I had a union staff of mechanical engineers that worked for me. And like the youngest guy was 45 years old. And here I'm 25 in charge of this whole union shop. Again, that came from leadership that the Coast Guard instilled in me and the leadership I understood by that point. But yeah, I've just, it doesn't matter what I'm doing. I have to have an upside to it. I have to, I'm an entrepreneur to the bone. And, I would take a hot dog stand in front of Home Depot over a $400,000 a year postal job. We need those people to do those things. And I'm not knocking it, but that's just not me. I'd rather have the upside to own my own business and have my own flexibility and work hard and get rewarded for that hard work, right? If I'm working for somebody else, there's promotion and things, but I wanted to be in control of that destiny. And that's just always been, again, my strength and my weakness.
That is phenomenal. And there's a couple things that I really just got out of that right now. And, one is that you're showing me that, and in fact, I'm sure in the military this was already occurring, but you're showing me that leadership is not having anything to do with age. And then in fact, true leadership can occur, much younger than the people you're in fact leading. And I know there's this, sort of imposter ageist concept when you have younger people that are attempting to go into leadership positions, even if they're following their natural wisdom, but they go, wow, I don't know, like I'm too young, I don't belong here. But every single, memory that you're giving me is really showing me that in fact, leadership is ageless. It occurs where it occurs. If you have it, you have it. Use it, define it, show yourself, show up. And it looks like you had the bravery to do that. And in fact, that is a component, right, of leadership, which says that I am a leader. I know I'm a leader. I'm going to show up as a leader. It's hard to avoid showing up as a leader. And I think for you, it looks like it was so intrinsic. And then again, just going back to your grandpa, I love that you were raised by a combination of a pragmatist and a visionary or let's, call them whatever we will. But, and I think there's such value to each one of those things, each one of those types of personalities in our lives. Certainly businesses need almost a combination of those two things to thrive really well. But you're also showing me that, from at any point you said, and I think the quote was, I just always understood there's nothing I can't do. And it makes me think about your grandfather. And when he was just saying like possibility, everything is limitless. Life is limitless. You are limitless. You can do anything. Yeah. And so it looks like
Amen. That, and I'm so glad he did that for me.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. 100%. So you talk a lot about the cost of winning. So consistency, sacrifice, truth. What habits or mindsets became non-negotiable for you as you stepped into higher levels of leadership?
Yeah, and it's interesting. I'm still growing. I'm still learning as a leader today, right? And I'll still be learning as a leader in 10 and 20 years from now. And I think that's the wisdom, that is the maturity that comes along with just growing. But I think a leader is the one that's willing to get in the trench first, right? Instead of pointing and telling people to do it. Maybe that's some of today's leaders. They don't have the practical experience and understanding and or willingness to be the leader because of failure, right? And so being a leader is being able to risk and being able to take the failure and own the failure, not pass it off to the people that didn't do their job. Because when I look like at a quarterback of a football team, the Raiders lost terribly this week, and it's been happening a lot. And I'm a Raiders fan. So, but I heard the quarterback, Geno Smith, say something powerful. He goes, they were saying, hey, something with the defense, that's my fault. Hey, something with the receivers, that's my fault. And he just took extreme ownership. It's kind of a Navy SEAL phrase, but extreme ownership. And when you do that, you become a leader, and people start following you because of that natural leadership trait. And it's not about just saying I'm taking the blame just to take the blame, but it's truly saying that, listen, I am the leader of this ship. I'm the captain, whatever it may be. And everybody's under me, not in a position of inferiority. It's a position of extreme ownership, of just like the buck stops here, right? When you're the leader, you can't say it's not my job. You can't say, yeah, that's not my department. If it's your company, they're all your departments, right? So it's all about empowering people to step up and do what they're capable of. And that's what I think a good leader is do it for them if necessary, and show them that you're capable, or show them that you're willing, right? But at the end of the
Model
day,
the behavior you're looking for. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, 100%. I mean, I remember in construction where we're 12, 15 foot underground digging for pipes and stuff, and the boss is like, get down there and do that. And I'm like, all right, dude, zero respect for that, right? But if I get a boss that jumps down there, shovels 5 or 6 times, says, okay, dirt looks good, looks safe. Okay, next person, come down and do this. I'm like, I'm in, right? That's leadership to me. And, I think there is an opportunity for young people, men and women, to really excel in this world now, because I think we've gotten lazier and lazier over time. I think we've got more complacent and more entitled. And when somebody stands out, meaning that they're like, I'm humble. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to outwork everybody here. I'm going to do what's necessary. The buck's going to stop with me. I think you'll advance so fast through employment. It'll make your head spin. I just believe that. Whether you're an independent contractor, real estate agent, imagine a real estate agent coming into the company of 80 and telling the broker, hey, just curious, what can I do for you? What do you need done around here? What can I do to help you? Thank you for housing us. Thank you for having this building. Thank you for having this overhead. Thank you, thank you, thank you. What can I do for you? I'm getting paid the same as all the rest of them that are complaining about the coffee being empty or otherwise. But that is how you're going to put yourself in a position when they go, we need a general manager. Randy comes in all the time asking what he could do. I saw Randy taking out the trash, didn't ask him to. I saw Randy call the copy company because it was broke in the copier, and everybody else walked by it, right? That little tiny taking ownership thing is a big deal. And I think that those traits, picking up something when nobody's looking, just doing the things that, listen, in our gut, I think we know what we are capable of. And I keep saying I'll take the ownership. I
Yeah.
will have the opportunity to take the lazy road because everybody else may be lazy. Because everybody else walked by a piece of paper on the ground doesn't mean that it doesn't stop with you, right? And so
Yes.
I've just always been that way, and I think it's been respected by my people. And it's also created a tolerance level that I have that's a very high expectation, right? So when I have a high expectation, like in customers' homes, I walk in and everything's dusty. My guys didn't put plastic up. They didn't cover their nice couch with plastic. I, I, I don't do well with that, right? I go, there's no room for that laziness in both physically and mentality. It's just lazy. And so for me, that rubs some people like, hey, I'm paid to do this job. Or maybe it's my tile guy that came in and like, it's not my job, man. I'm like, it is your job. If it's not done, it's your job. And then I'll fill the gaps of where it was broken that led you to have to do it. Right. But the end result is the customer satisfaction. And if we're not there, none of us are winning.
Yeah. Yeah.
So a little bit of a rant there, but it's important to me.
Exactly. And it's really one begets the other. The fact that you are able to have leadership, you defined it, I think, really well for us. It also means that you're calling others out to a higher standard. And isn't that kind of, normal? Isn't that sort of the circle of life that we go, we can increase what's around us by demonstrating and showing and modeling the behaviors that we want, whether we're a parent, we're a teacher, we're a boss, whatever it is. If you want an organization, your organization, in fact, inversely is not doing well, you actually do have to look to you, because you can go, what am I not modeling? What am I not teaching? What am I not demonstrating? How am I disorganized or unfit for purpose in this moment, that the people around me are not showing up in the way that I want and that I demand? And then when you do pull yourself up to that level, you are, like you said, extreme ownership. And I love that you said where the phrase came from, because I had not known that was like a Navy SEAL term, but this idea, it makes sense to me. And so if you're doing extreme ownership, it gives you actually the right, the place, and the space to demand better from others around you, and for them to be forced into accountability, because you go, I have no quarter. I have, I can sit here and go, I demand this of you because I'm giving it all day long. And I love that. And one of the things that I thought about when you were speaking was this idea of ownership. And you were saying extreme ownership, the fact that the gentleman with the Raiders, with the quarterback, was saying my fault, is that it gave me another thought too. And that is that what is it really implicitly stating as well is not just ownership. It means there's something to learn. There's some pivot that could have happened. There's something that could have something else that could have occurred that that's my fault. It also means now we can go forward and do something different. We can change, that pattern into something else. And I think that also is implicit in really true leadership, is that if you can say it's my fault or I take ownership of this, it means that you can actually do something about it going forward. And then I love what you talked about, with that expectation of others, because it also goes to the idea, like you made the point, if society is dropping low, and if we're just not expecting that much of the daily, hire, or the person that's coming in, or the person that's doing business, and like you said, if you want to stand out, what can I do for you? What can I do for you? And I wrote down the word proactive. It's just really this idea. And I can tell you, I love promoting from within personally in my company.
Mm-hmm.
And it is definitely the people that show up, that are no drama, less drama, that are there reliably, that are, taking time outside of the business to learn and bring that back to us, that are actually showing up and have a bone or a muscle in them that says, I want to do more. And this is so true in every entrepreneurship, in every type of job. And I'm sure in every corporate job, you name it. My husband is not, has not been able to avoid being laid off the 3 times that his corporation did 30% layoffs, if it weren't for the fact that he has a personal stated ethic of earning every single day. He cannot go home until he feels that he's earned the day. And this is really what you're alluding to. And we need more of that. And if people want to rise, you can go, how come I keep getting not picked or overlooked? But are you earning your day? Are you being proactive? Are you asking, what can I do for you? I 100% love that. You run coaching programs, a real estate organization, events, and content platforms. How do you sustain your own well-being inside and out and your personal life while holding those levels of responsibility?
Yeah, well, it tie in great to your program, Women Who Rise. I'm surrounded by amazing women. I have, it started with an assistant that I hired, and it was really just that, as an assistant in the position. Then she got promoted to executive assistant. And then now she's director of operations for all of my companies. And what I love about that is this wasn't her career choice, right? I stole her from the Chamber of Commerce. Nikita Butler's her name. I stole her. She was an assistant at the Chamber of Commerce. And I remember I went in there, and she had, a great personality, and I thought she would fit the mold well. And then when I challenged her to keep stepping up, maybe a personality thing, she just was like, I'm safe here. Right. And I just kept leadership's kind of challenging people to be the best they can be, and sometimes help them out of their comfort zones and things. And I believe I did that with her respectfully. And now, I'm painting vision of what she wants. My vision of maybe the future for her may not be the exact as hers, but I really want my people to be empowered. So I remember asking her, what do you want in this world? Like, I was thinking personally for me, like, what position does she want? What hours does she want? She goes, I want to teach kids, like, underserved kids, ballet. And I'm like, oh, that's a cool thing. And so I said, let's pursue that. So she's now got a nonprofit. They're going to be traveling multi-states teaching ballet. And she's the Sugar Plum Fairy here at the Nutcracker in town. And she's in charge of the dance studio on the side. So we've taken her hours down a little bit so she could do both. This is her passion, right? Working for me is not her passion. She is an amazing, amazing partner, employee, leader. But that's not her passion. So as a leader, I identified that I've got to do things that empower her to do the things that make her happy. And now she's been with me years, and she keeps going, I can't believe I'm still working with you after all these years, and we really, Kirsty, my wife, and Kirsty runs the business director of expansion, and then I, coach and do some things. But when I look at these two women, they're really the ones that are empowering this engine we have of 1,000 agents, and, sometimes dozens of employees with BAs and all the different things. And, so for me, it's leadership is really helping people reach milestones they didn't think were possible, helping them break through barriers of finding out what they really want to do. And some of that is helping them out of your company. It bugged me when the broker didn't want you to get your broker's license because you would
Right.
competitively start your own
Yes.
office. And that happened to me 5 times. So I started getting that little bit of PTSD. I had my buyer's agent that then became a broker that then opened their own office and then started being a competitor of mine across the street. She's got all my presentations, all my experience, all my everything. And I'm like, well, that didn't feel very good. And, not to go down an EXP trail, but that's what I saw was different in EXP. I could lift up everybody. I can encourage them to get broker's licenses and the highest level of opportunity. And then they still stay in my organization, right? They still stay in my universe, my ecosystem, where before they would have to leave to advance because I was within a franchise model, Keller Williams, or whatever it was. And so for me, that's a really empowering thing, is when you help people reach milestones and continue to grow. And like when I coach people and they come into my program, I go, my goal is to get you out of my program, right? My goal is not to keep you down enough that you have to need me forever. Especially on my team, I want to empower them to outrun me, because if they outrun me, I win, they win, everybody wins. And so you have to set your ego aside and those things. So
I love that so much. Yeah.
a
Sorry, go
a
ahead.
couple takeaways that I was writing down when you were talking is inspect what you expect. As a leader, you have to inspect what you expect. That was drilled into me, and I've always used that. But you can't be a leader that just finger points and then expects it to get done. And then when it's a train wreck, you blame them. That's on you, right? So now if I train them and they go through the SOP and then we go through all these processes and then they screw it up and I fix it, and they screw it up and I tell them what they did and we fix it again, they screwed up again, then it might be time to part ways and maybe they're not fit for this. But the leader's responsibility is to inspect what you're expecting. And if you do that, then I think they, meaning the people that rely on you from a leadership capacity, they honor that. They respect that. and they understand that you care about the outcome of this, right? It's not just all about praise. It's about people want to do well. They want to do what they're supposed to do. They want to comply. I know it depends on personalities, um, but for the most part, I think that's what makes a leader is somebody that empowers their employees to make decisions for the betterment of the company. And, an example is I might empower you to make a decision. Like if you come up with something, I want you to take extreme ownership. So within reason, I'm not telling you go spend 10 grand on a new truck because you think the motor didn't work in this truck. That's different,
Yeah.
right? But I'm saying if you're on the job and somebody needs a decision made, I would much rather you be empowered to make the decision in the best of your abilities with my business in mind, and then say, okay, thank you for making the decision. Totally the wrong direction, right? So let's learn this together. You went red and we should have went blue. Here's why I said blue and I never told you it should have been blue. But just so you know, thank you for making the decision to go with red because you made a decision. That's what I want to honor is that activity. And then we can grow from that, right? But if you've got employees that are so afraid to do anything and so afraid to make a decision, and I'm guilty of that. I'm a bull in a china shop boss, right?
Yeah.
And so sometimes, especially female, coworkers, I'm a bull sometimes, and I don't mean to be. And so when I say that, I want to be respectful in that situation, and I don't want them to be intimidated by my reaction. And this has come through growth over time. But there's nothing that makes me happier is when I see somebody make a decision and they processed why they made the decision. They analyzed and they made a good leadership move. And I'm like, bravo, that is like legit, right? Sometimes it could be better than I
Yeah.
thought of. Sometimes I could have tried it 10 other times and it failed every time, but they did it. That is, that's a big reward for me.
Love that. And it's really to the point also that leadership has a tremendous amount of joy in being able to see others, grow and being able to see them have agency and be able to become versions of themselves that they hadn't yet seen. And we talk also a lot about mentorship here, and I have a question for you on that as well. But I just want to go back to, something you said. And it was, when you asked her, when you asked your employee, what is it you really want, in your life, or if I had the words here, what do you want in this world? And she surprised you with, the thing about ballet. And I remember in a convention in Salem, actually, I think now that you had said all this, I remember being able to see her on stage and make that
Yeah,
announcement that she's
that's
created
right.
this nonprofit. But what a cool, like, let's just give the hat here or tip the hat here, because what a cool boss it is to ask that question, and it is open-ended and you don't know what's going to come out, and maybe it's to go work for the competitor, like you don't know. But just the fact that you had, that you were someone who asked that question, what an amazing boss. And also that she felt absolutely safe to say, and safe and in fact encouraged and inspired, to spit out this like completely random idea that you had no idea was in her heart. That really shows some magic there between those two people. As you as the boss that is you clearly created an organically inspiring and safe environment in which to operate for her, that she could even give you that answer. And that anything is possible. Maybe you also gave her a little bit of that grandpa thing that, anything is possible, that allowed her to be around you, to see you pursue dreams, to do great things. And I love absolutely that you said, my ultimate goal is to help you out of my company, and to make, the equivocation that it is true. It's why I brought my team to EXP. And I always make this podcast open to all people and all businesses. And I want women in corporations and every kind of company. But I will say that fit my worldview too, because it's a worldview that says that I want to keep growing you. I don't want to put a lid on you. And that also, I think, when we talk about true leadership, is extraordinary. And then talking about inspecting what you inspect. And I also wrote down the SOPs. Like there's the part of it, if you're not training and if you're not giving the how, then it's very difficult to give the order and then to come back, yes, and you have to inspect that and make sure that that's occurring. I wanted to pivot a moment and talk about you do coach and partner with many women in business, and you did just kind of talk about two really pivotal and important women that work with you and in your life and your wife. What do you think people maybe often misunderstand about women who do rise and lead at a high level?
Well, I mean, I'm I'm one of those guys that have always worked well with women and been in a position to where I love seeing women bosses, right? I just love seeing women empowering other women and being involved in that. For me, I think this industry, specifically real estate, is predominantly women, like almost 70%. And that kind of surprised me at the time because you think about the good old boys and the good old days, right? But those days are long, long gone. And it's really not a man or woman thing anymore. It's leadership. It's world skills and the way you treat people. And women just have a superpower about that. They just have a motherly ability that some guys don't have. And I've seen women in the construction space that just absolutely dominate because they're able to speak in a language that is much easier received to customers, men and women, about their home
Yeah.
renovations and home things and stuff. For me, I think that may the best man or woman win is an equal playing field to me. It really
Yeah.
is.
So well said.
But
I
with
love
that
that.
said, there's still, I believe, and, again, I could be, crucified for this, but I still think that there's a natural thing in the corporate world where the women have to prove themselves beyond what a man does, right? You have to overcome that being a woman side of it, and that's unfortunate. I'm glad the scales are balancing out. It shouldn't be that way. And I think that we've done a good job as a society to do the things to level that playing field and be a blind eye to it, right? Really to check resumes and experience and stuff. But I think that might be why women are succeeding so much is because they have that innate feeling that they have to overcompensate or over deliver
Yeah.
to outdo somebody
Yes.
else that may be in the industry, whether it be a man or a woman, really.
Yeah.
So
I think it
that's
was sorry, go
that's what
ahead.
comes up for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, I think it was, I wanna say it was, maybe Mike Shum and who also came by way of some, Tom Ferry coaching, and it helped kind of forge him, and inform him. But, I think it was him that said something to the effect of, you know, women actually one of the problems he'd identified in coaching them was, not that they weren't ready, but in fact that they weren't launching when they were ready and that they were waiting to be even more ready, that they weren't trusting that they were now ready to do XYZ, and that they needed to keep going and keep learning. And it's maybe that overcompensation that you were just kind of alluding to, which is great to say. You're over prepared, but to be over prepared by the time you launch, kind of begs the question of what opportunity costs may have existed in those years that you didn't yet launch. And so for the women who listening who want to step into true leadership, what's the core piece of advice that you tend to give them about rising with intention and integrity?
Yeah, so well, follow integrity's first, right? If you don't have something to stand on, you stand for nothing. So, having a moral to stand on, then you'll never be challenged, or at least you're willing to die on that hill, right? But for me in business, and I don't think it's a male female thing. I keep going back to this. I mean, I I I think for me, it's really about caring for people. And when we look at what you're talking about specifically, identifying the personality type is super important because what you described is like Nikita and my wife to a T. Um, they're both they're both integrators and I'm an operator, right? I'm a visionary and I have no integration capabilities whatsoever. I think I do, but I don't. I will screw it up. So I need powerful people around me that can integrate. And I think sometimes if a woman comes into business, I might be wrong in this, but I feel naturally they're a little more on the integrator side. They're naturally a compliant, meaning things are going to be lined up correctly. A has to equal B, all these things. And when you take me, I don't care about any of that. I'm like, we're going that way. We're going to crash down mountains and trees and houses along the way. We're going to get there. I don't know how. Again, but that's a weakness of mine. So I need them around me to bring that into play and allow my vision ideas put into an integrator role. Right now, I have business partners that are men that are very much integrators and not visionaries. Right, so it's not a man woman thing. Like I said, I think this is a leader thing. As a leader, SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. You have to look at yourself from a leader's perspective and say, what am I great at? What are my weaknesses? Kind of what's my blind sides, right? What opportunities do I have? And then what are my threats? My threats are for me, and my weaknesses, they go hand in hand. Well, my weakness is I have the inability to put things into play from a integrator's position, right? I do not have the capacity, nor do I like any part of that. With AI and stuff, it's brilliant because I could have an AI do it for me now. So I could have my cool
Yes.
idea and then I could dump it into AI and say, I need you to be the integrator for my vision. And it's amazing what it can do. But prior to that, it's a challenge for me, right? So I've identified that as a weakness of mine that I need other people to help lift up and strengthen that. My threat is I'm shiny object guy, right? I'm like such a visionary that literally I think of 3 businesses in the shower. And this is so common for me. It happens 20 times a year. I'll be in the shower. I'll just, and I'm like, oh my gosh, if we did this, we could help these people and that could be served by this. And then, oh my gosh, I could do a holding company that does that. And then I have to tame all that down. I have to run it by my people. And they're like, why are we doing this? And I'm like, you're right. We're not doing it. It sounded like a great idea in the shower, but we're not doing it because they put the reality to it that it's not in our lane, right? So like this might be valuable for people listening to the podcast. Just this week, we did our annual business planning review for 2026. We do it every year around, Thanksgiving. And we had the staff in the house here, and we put big white pads up on the wall, and I've got them around my office now because we took them all out of the living room and brought them in here. But we just said, clean slate. What did we do well? What do we want to look at for 2026? And because they're integrators, I started laying out my ideas, and they were shooting holes in it. And it didn't feel good to me because I'm like, you don't get it yet. But the reality is, that's what I want from them. I want that honest feedback. And sometimes I had to say, okay, let me explain for 3-4 minutes so you get more of my vision. And then if you feel the same way, I honor it. And a couple times they pointed to something going, that doesn't work. And I was like, God, you're right. Because I don't have the same lens, right? I'm a
Yes.
visionary. So
Yeah.
when people are looking at, growing as a leader, surround yourself by those people that shore up your weaknesses. Henry Ford, it's a beautiful story. Owner of Henry Ford Motor Company, the main guy, right? He was challenged back in the day. This is early in the 1900s. He was challenged of being basically incompetent. Even though he ran this big automobile company, the board basically were challenging him, if I remember the story correctly, of his competence. And so they brought him in. They go, okay, we're going to test you. And, they had this panel of people that were going to test his knowledge. And they go, what's the displacement of this cylinder in the engine? He goes, I don't know. And they're like, see? And he's like, no, I hit a button on my desk and the brightest mind on the planet that knows engine displacement comes into my office and answers my question. How do you handle your finances? You're publicly traded. He goes, don't know. I hit a button and that person, so he goes, I've blessed myself with 10 people that come in at the summons of a button press on my desk and they tell me everything I need to know. I've surrounded myself with experts. Why would I want to be the expert in all these categories? Yes. And it was like the most educated, brilliant thing ever. And they were literally challenging him if he was capable of running the company because of his, intellectual absence maybe. And so that inspires me, right? That inspires me. And it also will help your self-esteem and help your belief in yourself if you go, you know what? I don't have to be the smartest person in the room. I have to be smart enough to know when I'm not smart enough, and I have to find the resource. And now there's zero excuse because the resources are so plentiful with AI and all the things. It's pretty crazy.
I so agree. We are, we're basically underutilizing, 89% of everything we've got right now because it's happening so quickly.
100%.
Yeah, so good. And I love that. I say that often to the agents. You don't have to be the smartest. You don't have to be the best. That's why you're on a team. That's why you're with, a company to help you. That's why, we're here to fill in the gaps as you're learning them. And then also, yes, as a leader, just to understand that we can have that zone of genius, but we also have areas which are not working for us. So I just have a couple questions for you left. I want to be super conscious of your time.
Thank
You
you. And if
often
you hear a
teach.
little noise, my maid, aka my robot vacuum, just started right now, and it's starting to head down the
Great.
hallway. So if you hear it banging on the door, that's what.
Perfect. I love it. So you often teach that growth requires, clarity, discipline, and alignment. What are three non-negotiables that you believe every leader needs, both to grow a business and to grow themselves?
Mm. Wow. I mean, the first thing that comes up is punctuality to me. I don't know why that's the very first thing that comes up, but the
So
military
good.
beat that one to me.
Yeah.
I won so many jobs and so many listings and so many relationships because I was punctual, and other people just disrespect time. And so that for me is a non-negotiable. It's like something I tell my team, if we have a meeting at 1, you've got to be there at 1 o'clock. You don't have to be there 15 minutes early, but you better be there when we start, right? That is a non-negotiable for me because I value people's time, and my particular calendar runs in half an hour increments, right? The other piece would be, probably humility. Integrity and humility somewhat go together for me, but I want somebody that's humble, that's coachable, that's gritty, that can learn. That I will take that person to the moon, as opposed to somebody that nobody likes a know-it-all. And it's we're in an industry that there's a lot of posers, and a lot of people think they have to fake it till they make it, and they outdress themselves, and they outcar themselves, and they out position themselves as a winner when they haven't earned any of that. And so for me, it's like, have humility through this journey, and then when you're winning, you know, don't brag. Don't tell everybody about the win. Now, I'm guilty of that earlier in my, junior life. But as we gain maturity, I think these are the things that stand out as the big mistakes I made. I had a big ego. I wanted to be number one at everything. I'm very competitive, as you said. I raced cars. I did all the things. If you want to play basketball, I don't like playing basketball for just basketball. If you want to play for $50 or $10 or a soda, then I'll play, right? And the guys I golf with, we play for minimal. Like, we could play for $20 when it costs you $180 to golf, right? So it's not a big
Yeah.
bet, but that bet
Yeah.
means everything to me. Like, that bet means everything. And I play exceptionally better. If I'm playing for free and fun, I could take it or leave it.
I love that because what you're talking about is this capacity to gamify things. And I talk to my agents a fair amount about this and other people, hey, make it fun. If I do 100 calls, I can go treat myself to a Jamba Juice or whatever, and it's like,
So crazy.
I say Jamba Juice because I happen to love the stuff. And I would be motivated. I would get myself through my, actually my business degree just on Jamba Juice, that I was
So
like,
good.
if you get through this exam and you do a really good job today, you can go have a Jamba
Yeah.
Juice,
You
and
just
it's
gave
like
me
in my
goosebumps. You gave
mind.
me goosebumps because I was literally 1 minute before I got on this podcast, I was designing an app, and we were setting up the gamification of it to make it fun. And we were giving it awards, and we said the word gamification about 5 times right before I came on this. So perfect timing.
Wow.
And a good
Yeah.
reminder as well that people respond to, having fun with it.
Incremental rewards,
Yeah,
a
100%.
little skin in the game,
Yeah, 100%.
So last question for you, and I've loved this so much. What's next for you, Randy? So I know the guy who doesn't want to brag, this is where you get to brag a little bit, or at least kind of tell us how people can utilize you. But basically, whether it's business expansion, new coaching initiatives, future events, a book you're launching, whatever, what impact do you want to leave on the people that you lead in the industry you serve? And yeah, how can people utilize what you do?
Yeah, thank you for that. So all those things, everything you just mentioned are on my horizon. You know, Jim Rohn said one of the most famous statements that I had on the business card, on the back of my business card for like 5 years: help enough people get what they want and you'll get all you want. And so that's been my vision. That's why we've grown to 1,000. My goal is to go to 2,000 in the next 24
Wow.
months, doubling that. My goal is to buy RV parks. That is a passive income strategy that we're focused on. So we're looking at
Yeah.
RV parks and all those things. I think it helps. Everything I'm doing feels like it has a capacity to help, and that is helping a housing crisis. It's not just transient people in RVs and $100,000 RVs, but there's people living in RV parks and traveling the country. COVID disrupted a lot of things. That's
Yes.
on the horizon for me. My coaching is important to me. We have an Attract Boss coaching program that's exclusive for my particular brand and company. We don't want to teach the competitor to do what I do, but we teach other agents how to grow passive income and investment income and all the things to do with, basically growing a brokerage without the liability and exposure and overhead and all the things that come with it that are bad. So that's where my power is. That's where my energy is helping broker owners and team leaders understand how to build that without the exposure. And so those are the things that fire me up and keep me going. I'm not in production anymore, but we do have a production team and I'm in the coaching capacity of that. But you could find me at Coach Randy Byrd everywhere, YouTube, Instagram, all the things, Coach Randy Byrd, pretty straightforward and easy. And, I'm not really taking on one-on-one coaching clients anymore. We've kind of come to a point in the organization where my time is valuable in other areas. But I do occasionally take on a couple clients if you're really burning to move the needle and go to the next level. But certainly not a pitch because I am. It's kind of tough to get in my coaching program now. But we have a big
Yeah.
community that we have with the Track Boss and some different things that we do, and we'd love to be engaged and help any way we can.
That I love that so much. Well, I want to say that, I've got so much from this episode. It's been a real pleasure. I am
Yeah,
so
I got you.
happy that I was able to interview you today. And I know that our audience is going to be able to get a ton of value from your story and from all that you've been able to share with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you, Heather.
I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Well, folks, that's it for today's podcast. Thank you so much for joining us on Women Who Rise, the success podcast for ambitious women. Today, Randy taught us, number one, if you don't have anything to stand on, you stand on nothing. He talked about having integrity, that it is something that is such a core value and so critical to anyone's success. He talked about punctuality, how that is a core tenet of his. If you value other people's time, they will value yours. Integrity, again, and humility. Just the fact that having integrity can also lead to humility, and that humility leads to coachability. And that if you are not humble, it is very difficult to create an environment in which others will pour into you and have you be able to then rise and learn and gain from the knowledge of others. Number two, he talked about empowering others in your organization to make decisions for the benefit of the company. Just understanding that you have a capacity to allow others some autonomy, and that autonomy can give them the opportunity to make mistakes, but can also give them the opportunity to make great decisions. And if they're understanding that it's for the benefit of the company, and if what you're giving them in that autonomy lets them move within options to benefit the company, you can really get them ownership. And then you are no longer leading just from the top down, but you're actually inspiring leadership from the bottom up. He talked about using business to create opportunities for those who work for you and to help them make their own dreams come true. I loved the story about one of the gals who works for him, and the fact that on an open-ended question about what were her heart's desires, she wanted to create a way to teach dance to young girls and to create a nonprofit. And in fact, he helps her do that. And then lastly, shore up your own weaknesses with those you hire. You have to be smart enough to know and recognize and even plan for the fact that you don't have to be the smartest person in the room. You have to be smart enough to know that you are, in fact, not, and to identify those areas in which you are not, and then shore those things up, shore up those weaknesses with wonderful hires, excellent hires that can make you and your organization expert in all areas needed. So, visit our website to find our episode guide and worksheet that will help you use these tips to take action in your own life. Like and subscribe, and join us everywhere podcasts are streamed. We can't wait to bring you more incredible content every week so that you can rise in your own lives and careers. Again, thank you so much. Heather Mansy, signing off.